Our two countries are standing with the Ukrainian people as they fight off Putin's brutal aggression. You know, Putin not going to stop at Ukraine. It's not just Ukraine. It's about much more than Ukraine. The United States is standing strong with Ukraine. We're standing with our allies, and we're standing with France. We will not, say it again, walk away.
Fresh from commemorating the 80th anniversary of D-Day, French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed US President Joe Biden in Paris on Saturday, that is on June 8th, yesterday, for a significant state visit. The two leaders engaged in high-stakes discussions focused on the Middle East, Ukraine, and trade. Macron emphasized their commitment to preventing a regional escalation from Israel's conflict with Hamas in Gaza. He highlighted efforts to de-escalate tensions between Israel and Hezbollah, an Iran-backed political and militant group in Lebanon. We are rebounding efforts together to avoid a regional explosion, particularly in Lebanon, said Macron.
We want to obtain the immediate liberation of hostages, and we can only welcome the liberation of 4 hostages by the Israeli army. We want to achieve an immediate ceasefire and open up the prospect of a political solution, which is the only one that can bring about a fair and lasting peace and meet the security concerns of both people. And that is why we are supporting the comprehensive proposal of the United States of America. After 9 months of conflict, the situation in Rafah and the human consequences are unacceptable. It is not acceptable that Israel should not open all checkpoints to humanitarian aid as requested by the international community for months. Israeli operations should stop there, and the United Nations Security Council has a role to play. But of course, jointly, we will double down to avoid a regional escalation, in particular in Lebanon, where we are working on de-escalation on the blue line and on the institutional aspect, and both countries are working with both and indeed all stakeholders.
Both leaders celebrated the rescue of 4 hostages held by Hamas since October, expressing a shared determination to see all hostages freed and a ceasefire achieved. Biden said, "We won't stop working until all the hostages come home and a ceasefire is reached." Despite Biden's staunch support for Israel, the high Palestinian death toll has alienated parts of his left-leaning base, posing a challenge as he campaigns for re-election against Republican Donald Trump. The visit commenced with a solemn ceremony of the Arc de Triomphe, where Biden and Macron paid respects to the tomb of the unknown soldier. Following this, they greeted veterans and traveled down the Champs-Élysées, escorted by French guards on horseback to the Élysée Palace. The day concluded with a dinner at the presidential palace. Biden and Macron reiterated their united stance on supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression. They released a joint roadmap pledging to use frozen Russian assets to aid Kyiv. If Putin succeeds in this war with Ukraine, he would not stop there. All of Europe will be threatened. But we are not going to let that happen. The United States is standing strong with Ukraine. We are standing with our allies, and we are standing with France.
You could feel it. You could see it. And we'll never forget what they did. And this week we have showed the world once again the power of allies and what we can achieve when we stand together. That's what this relationship between France and the United States exemplifies. You know, we see it in Ukraine, where our two countries are standing with the Ukrainian people as they fight off Putin's brutal aggression. And yesterday I announced $225 million in new security assistance to Ukraine, and it's the 6th package we've provided since we signed the national security legislation earlier this year. I wish we could have done it when we wanted to 6 months earlier, but we got it done. with $61 billion in additional aid to Ukraine. And I commend France and our European allies for their leadership as well. The EU has provided over $107 billion in assistance to Ukraine since the war began, because we know what happens if Putin succeeds in subjugating Ukraine. And we won't stop. You know, Putin's not going to stop at Ukraine. It's not just Ukraine. It's about much more than Ukraine. All of Europe will be threatened. We're not going to let that happen. The United States is standing strong with Ukraine. We're standing with our allies, and we're standing with France. We will not, say it again, walk away. And around the world, France and the United States are working together to strengthen security and shared prosperity. In the Indo-Pacific, we stand together for freedom of navigation, transparent governments, as well as fair economic practices. In the Middle East, in North Africa, we work together on issues critical to peace and stability, like food security and counterterrorism. And the existential threat of climate change, which is just growing greater, we're working together to accelerate the global transition to net zero. It is the existential threat to humanity, among the only existential threat to humanity, including nuclear weapons, is if we do nothing on climate change. I could go on. Every day, the French people and the American people are connected in countless ways through economic ties, collaboration in science and technology, educational exchanges. The reason we don't have more Americans coming, we're afraid they won't come home. Such a beautiful, this is such an incredible country, such a beautiful country. And, you know, the fact is that these cherished ties between our families and friends continues to grow. The bonds between our nation are strong, vast, and rooted in the most important element, shared values. That's true today, as it's been from the very start. In a few weeks, the United States will celebrate the 4th of July, our Day of Independence. That feat would not have been possible, it's not hyperbole, would not have been possible were it not for France coming to our aid. We're a nation because of France, in large part. You stepped up when we needed help, and you did it. That's what 4th of July is about. That feat would not have been possible, again, without your support, without French support. Today, I proudly stand with France to support freedom and democracy around the world. That's what this spectacular week is all about. Mr. President, there's much more we had the chance to talk about. We're going to continue to talk. You've become a good friend, and I really appreciate your cooperation and your insights. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, President.
Thank you.
Subscribe to Oneindia channel and never miss an update.